You know how sometimes in Arabic, one tiny word can just throw you for a loop? Well, today we're going to solve one of those exact puzzles. We're talking about where you put the word this or that in a simple possessive phrase, like the window of the room. It sounds so basic, right? But in Arabic, moving that single word around creates three totally different meanings. So let's break down exactly how that works.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to lay out the puzzle itself so you can see what we're up against. Then we'll walk through the three simple rules that solve it. After that, we'll put our new skills to the test on some trickier examples and wrap it all up with a single, clear summary that puts everything together. Ready to dive in?
All right, let's get right into it. The entire mystery really boils down to this. How can moving one little word like this create three completely different meanings from the exact same set of words? It's actually a perfect showcase of just how incredibly precise and logical the Arabic language can be.
Okay, take a look at our core example here. On the left, you've got our starting phrase, Shabaku al-Ghurfati. Simple enough, it means the window of the room. But now look over on the right. We've taken the Arabic word for this, haza, and we've put it in three different spots. And what's wild is that all three of these are grammatically correct, but they each tell a completely different story. So there it is. That's the puzzle we need to solve. How does the position of just one word change the entire meaning so drastically? How do you know if you're trying to say, this is the window, or, I mean, this specific window, or the window of this specific room? Let's dig in and find out the rules that govern all of this.
All right, let's start with rule number 1. This one is probably the easiest to remember, and it's unique because it's the only one of the three placements that gives us a full, complete sentence.
The rule is actually super straightforward. If the pointing word, the pronoun, like this, comes before the possessive phrase, you've just made a complete sentence. You can think of it like this. That pronoun becomes the subject of your sentence, the mubtada, and the whole phrase that follows is the new information about that subject, the khabar. So let's apply that to our example. هذا شباك الغرفة. Because that word هذا is right at the beginning, it's a full statement. It means this is the window of the room. It's the perfect direct answer to the question, hey, what is this? It's as simple as that. And this isn't just some abstract grammar rule. You see it everywhere. Take this really well-known example from the Quran. هذه ناقة Allah. The pronoun هذه, which is just the feminine version of this, comes first. And the result? A complete, powerful sentence. This is the water camel of Allah. The structure is exactly the same as our window example. Okay, so that's rule 1. Now for the other two placements. This is where things get a bit more nuanced, but also really cool. When the pronoun comes after the phrase or gets tucked in the middle of it, we don't get a full sentence anymore. Instead, what we're doing is creating descriptive phrases. So here's the absolute key distinction you've got to remember. If you put the pronoun at the very end, it points back and describes the first noun, the thing that's owned. But if you stick it in the middle, it points to and describes the second noun, the owner. Let's see exactly what that looks like. This table just lays it all out perfectly. Look at that top row. The pronoun haza comes at the very end, so it modifies shubak, the window. This gives us the descriptive phrase, this window of the room. Now, look at the bottom row. The pronoun hadihi is in the middle, pointing to al-ghurfati, the room. So now the meaning becomes the window of this room. And notice how the pronoun even changes to the feminine form to match the gender of the room. It's so precise.
So it all just boils down to one simple question. Is the pronoun pointing to the object, or is it pointing to the owner? The location of that pronoun is basically a signpost, telling you exactly which word gets the description. It's a beautifully logical system once you see it.
Okay, we have the rules down. Now for the fun part. Let's put them into practice with a couple of new examples. This is where you can really start to feel the power of knowing these little distinctions.
All right, first up, here's our test case. Kabiruhum haza. Now, the core phrase here is kabiruhum, which means their leader. And the pronoun haza comes right after it. So, based on what we've just learned, which rule applies here? And what does it mean? So, let's walk through it. The pronoun is after the main phrase. That's our rule number 2. And that means it has to point back to the first noun, which is kabir, the leader. So, it's not a full sentence. It's the descriptive phrase, this leader of theirs. See? Perfect. Okay, let's try one more. Tamru tilka ash-shajarati.
The base phrase without the pronoun is tamru ash-shajarati, which means the date of the tree. This time, the pronoun is tilka, a word for that. So take a look. Where is it?
You got it. It's right there in the middle, between the date and the tree. And that, of course, is our Rule 3. So the pronoun tilka must be describing the second noun, the owner, which is ash-shajarati, the tree. This gives us the crystal clear meaning, the date of that tree. You see how the system just works? Every time?
So, we've broken down the 3 rules, and we've seen them in action. Now let's just put it all together on one final summary slide. This is definitely the one you'll want to screenshot for your notes later.
And here it is. This is the whole thing in a nutshell. Pronoun before, you've got a full sentence. Pronoun after, it's describing the first noun. Pronoun in the middle, it's describing the second noun. That's it. That is the key to unlocking this entire concept.
So why do we obsess over one little word? Because mastering a detail like this is the difference between just getting the gist of a text and truly, deeply understanding what the author intended to say. It's about moving from a blurry, standard definition translation to a high definition one, where every single nuance comes through with perfect clarity. So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. Now that you have this key, what texts are you going to unlock? Whether it's classical poetry, the Quran, or even just modern Arabic news articles, where can you go back and apply this new, sharper lens to see the language more clearly? Think about it. I bet you'll be surprised by what you find.